This is SpaceTime, Series 29, Episode 23, for broadcast on the 23rd of February 2026. Coming up on SpaceTime, have astronomers discovered a dark matter galaxy? Another launch delay for the Artemis 2 mission to the Moon? And Australia's new hypersonic scramjet expected to launch this month. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
Astronomers have discovered an almost invisible galaxy that may be composed of some 99% dark matter. The galaxy, catalogued as CDG2, was detected in the Perseus galaxy cluster some 300 million light-years away. The findings, reported in the journal Astrophysical Research Letters, suggest it's one of the most heavily dark matter-dominated galaxies ever detected. No one knows exactly what dark matter is. It doesn't reflect, emit, or absorb light. But scientists know it exists because they can see its gravitational influence on normal matter, preventing galaxies from flinging apart as they revolve, and magnifying distant objects through gravitational lensing. Observations suggest it makes up at least 80% of all the matter in the universe, meaning everything we see from stars, planets and comets through to trees, cars, houses and people make up less than 20% of the universe. Our leading candidates for dark matter are things called weakly interactive massive particles, or WIMPs, which are unidentified elementary subatomic particles. The problem is we've not yet found anything that comes even close to matching the description of this substance. In the vast tapestry of the universe, most galaxies shine bright across cosmic time and space. Yet there's a rare class of galaxies that remain nearly invisible, low-surface brightness galaxies dominated by dark matter and containing only a sparse scattering of faint stars. The study's authors believe that CDG2 may be one such elusive object. Detecting such faint galaxies is incredibly difficult. Astronomers were able to identify 10 previously confirmed low-surface brightness galaxies and 2 additional dark matter galaxy candidates by searching for tight groupings of globular clusters, compact spherical star groups typically found orbiting normal galaxies. These clusters can signal the presence of faint, hidden stellar populations. To confirm one of the dark matter candidates, astronomers employed a trio of observatories: NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, the European Space Agency's Euclid Space Observatory, and the ground-based Subaru Telescope in Hawaii. Hubble's high-resolution imaging revealed a close collection of 4 globular clusters in the Perseus galaxy cluster. Follow-up studies using Hubble, Euclid and Subaru then revealed a faint diffuse glow surrounding these star clusters, strong evidence of an underlying galaxy. The study's lead author, David Lai from the University of Toronto, says this is the first galaxy detected solely through its globular cluster population. He says the underlying conservative assumption is that these 4 clusters represent the entire globular cluster population of CDG2. Preliminary analysis suggests that CDG2 has a luminosity of roughly 6 million sun-like stars, with the globular clusters accounting for about 16% of the visible content. Remarkably, 99% of the galaxy's mass, which includes both visible matter and dark matter, appears to be dark matter. Much of its normal matter to enable star formation, primarily hydrogen gas, was likely stripped away through gravitational interactions with other galaxies inside the Perseus cluster. Globular clusters possess immense stellar density and are gravitationally tightly bound together, and that makes globular clusters more resistant to gravitational tidal disruptions, and therefore reliable traces of such ghostly galaxies. This report on CDG2 from NASA TV.
Across the universe, galaxies shine like scattered jewels, vast collections of stars lighting the darkness. But hiding among this brilliance are ghosts, galaxies so faint they nearly vanish into the void. These are low-surface brightness galaxies, collections of dim stars dominated almost entirely by dark matter. Dark matter is a mysterious, invisible substance that makes up the bulk of our universe. Astronomers studying the Perseus galaxy cluster found one of the darkest yet, a faint smudge known as CDG2. Detecting it was like spotting a black cat in a coal bin. Scientists uncovered CDG2 not by its light, but by its companions, ancient globular clusters. These densely packed spherical star groupings typically orbit larger galaxies. Researchers found a small increase in the density of these clusters, suggesting the existence of an underlying faint galaxy pulling them together. Using NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, ESA's Euclid Observatory, and the Subaru Telescope in Hawaii, astronomers confirmed CDG2's faint halo of diffuse light surrounding 4 of these compact globular clusters. Preliminary analysis suggests CDG2 has the luminosity of roughly 6 million sun-like stars, with the clusters comprising about 16% of its visible matter. The galaxy's total mass, including both visible and dark matter, is overwhelmingly dominated by dark matter, which is 99% of the total. Much of CDG2's normal matter, primarily hydrogen gas, was likely stripped away by gravitational interactions within the Perseus cluster. Globular clusters are more resistant to such disruption because they are so densely packed together and gravitationally balanced. With the ongoing efforts of Hubble and companion observatories such as Webb and the upcoming Roman Space Telescope, astronomers will continue uncovering these hidden realms, galaxies made not of what we can see, but of what holds the universe together.
This is SpaceTime. Still to come, another launch delay for the Artemis 2 mission to the Moon, the first solar eclipse for 2026, and Australia's hypersonic scramjet expected to launch this month. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. This podcast is brought to you by Squarespace. If you want to look polished online without any headaches, Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform that helps you claim your domain, build a beautiful site, showcase what you do, and get paid, all from the one place. I guess you could think of Squarespace sort of like a tidy roommate for your business. It handles all the scheduling crumbs, the unpaid invoices under the couch, and actually answers the door when customers knock. If you offer services, consulting, classes, events, whatever you call your expertise, Squarespace makes booking and getting paid straightforward. Built-in appointment scheduling, professional invoices, and secure online payments means you can spend less time juggling spreadsheets and more time doing what you love. And now for the showstopper, design. Squarespace's Blueprint A1 will sketch a fully customized site for you based on a few simple questions: industry, personality, goals, and then hand you a polished copy and layout to tweak. But if you prefer DIY, well, you can choose an award-winning template, drag and drop, and watch your brand grow from works in progress to stop the scrolls in just minutes. No coding tantrums required. So why not try it for free at squarespace.com/spacetime. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SPACETIME to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/spacetime and the promo code SPACETIME. And remember, you'll find the links in our show notes. NASA is expected to scrub the targeted March 6 launch date for the Artemis 2 mission, which will return humans to lunar orbit for the first time in over half a century. The agency is preparing to roll back the Artemis 2 launch vehicle to the Vehicle Assembly Building following the discovery of a helium leak in the Space Launch System SLS rocket upper stage. Helium's an inert gas, used to maintain pressure in the liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen propulsion tanks as fuel is used up. Now, the helium system worked normally during both wet dress rehearsals. But during a routine vehicle pressurization operation, mission managers suddenly discovered they couldn't get helium to flow through the vehicle. The same issue developed during the countdown for the unmanned Artemis 1 mission, which flew around the Moon and back to Earth in November 2022. The wet dress rehearsal involved loading 2.65 million litres of cryogenically cooled liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen into the rocket and then proceed with mimicking the final stages of an actual launch countdown, with automated systems taking control of countdown operations, final checks of flight computers, engine bleed systems becoming operational, and all ground support equipment running as the rocket transitions to internal power and the countdown proceeds towards a simulated engine start. Right now, the rocket is safe. Engineers have switched to a ground-based purge system instead of the on-board helium supply while they investigate. Now, there are several possible causes which are being examined. One is a filter in the ground-to-vehicle umbilical. Another is the quick disconnect interface between ground and the vehicle. And a third is an internal check valve on the upper stage of the rocket. That's what happened with Artemis 1. The problem is all these components are inaccessible on the launch pad, meaning repairs can only be done inside the vehicle assembly building. So, NASA is now preparing to roll back the rocket, and officials have confirmed such a move will remove any March launch window from consideration. Now, if a March launch is scrubbed, the next window opens on April the 1st, with alternatives between April the 3rd and the 6th, and again on April the 30th. The announcement follows the completion of a successful wet launch dress rehearsal last week at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. It comes in the wake of an earlier dress rehearsal in January, which was plagued by hydrogen leaks on the interface between the massive 98-metre-tall SLS Space Launch System moon rocket and the launch pad infrastructure. Excessive hydrogen quickly built up near the base of the launch vehicle during the previous dress rehearsal in January, forcing mission managers to twice halt fueling to try and resolve the issue. The problem is, while hydrogen is an efficient propellant for rockets, its molecules are so small and light they can easily escape even the tightest seals. A similar issue developed during the Artemis 1 mission. Hydrogen was also the key propellant used during the Space Shuttle program, and engineers were able to resolve those problems back then. Attempts to resolve the issue during January's wet launch dress rehearsal involved stopping the flow of liquid hydrogen to the core stage, allowing the interface to warm up for the seals to reseat, and then adjusting the flow of the propellant. However, replacing the components for this latest dress rehearsal appears to have finally resolved the issue. Other issues encountered during the January wet dress rehearsal included several radio communications dropouts and problems with the cameras due to cold weather. There was also a sticking valve on the Orion spacecraft crew module hatch pressurization system, which had to be replaced and then retorqued. That'll be more important than ever for Artemis 2, because unlike the Artemis 1 test flight back in 2022, Artemis 2 will carry a crew of 4 people. After launch, they'll spend a day in Earth orbit, testing systems aboard the Orion spacecraft, including life support, avionics, maneuverability and docking ability, as well as crew radiation protection. Then, if all goes well, they'll ignite Orion's main engine, undertaking a trans-lunar injection burn, which will send them on a 4-day journey to the Moon. A number of experiments and the deployment of 5 satellites will also take place during the flight. Orion will travel around the Moon, swinging out to between 6,500 and 9,500 kilometres beyond the lunar far side, and that will make it the furthest humans have ever travelled from the Earth. They'll have several hours to study and image the lunar far side before undertaking another main engine burn to bring them back home. Overall, the mission will last 10 days, with splashdown in the North Pacific Ocean off the California coast. The Artemis program is setting the stage for man's return to the lunar surface on the Artemis 3 mission in 2028. There'll also be a new space station called Lunar Gateway in cislunar orbit, acting as a sort of jumping-off point for regular missions down to the lunar surface. And together, Artemis and Lunar Gateway will provide the foundations for both a permanent human presence on the Moon and eventually manned missions to Mars and beyond. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, the first solar eclipse for 2026 and Australia's hypersonic scramjet expected to launch this month. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. Parts of Antarctica have played host to a spectacular annular solar eclipse. Annular eclipses occur when the Moon passes between the Earth and the Sun, but it happens at a time when the Moon is near apogee in its orbit, meaning it's a bit further away from the Earth than average, therefore it appears to be slightly smaller than average. And that means it can't cover the entire face of the Sun as seen from Earth. The result is a blazing annulus called a ring of fire visible around the Moon. For those watching, it looks like a mesmerizing glowing halo, a ring suspended in the blackened sky as daylight transforms into an eerie twilight. The annularity for this month's eclipse lasted some 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Outside the path of annularity, a partial solar eclipse was visible across the west of Antarctica, as well as parts of southern Africa, Chile and Argentina in South America, and wide areas of the Great Southern, South Pacific, Southern Atlantic, and Indian Oceans. Solar eclipses are always preceded or followed by a lunar eclipse, when 2 weeks earlier or later, the Earth blocks out the sunlight reaching the full moon, resulting in a lunar eclipse. Now, this will happen on the 2nd and 3rd of March, when a total lunar eclipse should turn the face of the moon red. The sky show will be visible from Australia, the Americas, Far Eastern Europe and Asia, both the Antarctic and Arctic, and across the Pacific, Atlantic and Indian Oceans. The reddish colour is caused by light from the sun passing through Earth's atmosphere and being stretched into longer, redder wavelengths. The exact shade can vary from a pale pink through to a deep blood red, depending on the amount of dust and pollution in the air that the sun's light has to travel through in order to reach the lunar surface. It's often poetically described as seeing all of Earth's sunsets and sunrises at once, which in fact is a very accurate description. Solar eclipses happen a few times each year and are usually only visible from a location or a path near the moon's shadow. On the other hand, because the Earth's shadow is covering so much of the moon, lunar eclipses are visible over far broader areas. Last year, the Earth experienced 2 partial solar eclipses, and the last total solar eclipse swept across North America in 2024. Astronomers have described this latest event as the start of a golden age of solar eclipses over the next few years, with 3 annular and 3 total solar eclipses between 2026 and 2028. The next, on August the 12th, will be a total solar eclipse, visible across the Arctic, eastern Greenland, Iceland and northern Spain. Then on February the 6th next year, another annular eclipse will take place, this one sweeping over southern South America, the South Atlantic and parts of Africa. On August the 2nd next year, a total solar eclipse lasting a spectacular 6 minutes and 23 seconds of totality will travel across the Mediterranean, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and into the Indian Ocean. Then, on January the 26th, 2028, another annular eclipse will cross parts of South America and the Atlantic. And finally, for us in Australia, the big one. On July the 22nd, 2028, Australia will be in the box seat for a total solar eclipse of the sun, with up to 5 minutes and 10 seconds of totality. The show will kick off over the Western Australian Kimberley region at 11 a.m. local time, before crossing into the Northern Territory and passing just south of Tennant Creek shortly after midday. It then proceeds into southwestern Queensland before finally entering New South Wales, passing directly over the towns of Burke and Dubbo before reaching Sydney around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Australian Eastern Standard Time. It'll then pass over the South Pacific Ocean before crossing the southern part of the New Zealand South Island. The last such cadence of solar eclipses was between 2008 and 2010, and it won't happen again until 2044. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, an Australian company says it could fly its new hypersonic scramjet-powered aircraft as soon as this month. And later in the science report, it sounds like something out of a horror movie, but scientists have now discovered a bacteria which has been buried in an ice cave for 5,000 years, which appears to be resistant to many modern antibiotics. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. Australian company Hypersonic says it could fly its new hypersonic scramjet-powered aircraft before the end of the month. The Australian-developed DART AE vehicle will be powered by the company's reusable 3D-printed Spartan scramjet engine. The engine has no moving parts and is designed to operate at speeds in excess of Mach 5 using a liquid hydrogen fuel rather than conventional kerosene-based propellants. The long-term aim of scramjet technology is to develop a single stage-to-orbit capability. Ultra-long-range, high-altitude hypersonic travel is a more immediate goal. Now, existing scramjet designs only begin operating once the vehicle has already reached supersonic speeds, and so a more conventional power plant's needed to accelerate the vehicle and the scramjet to sufficiently high speeds for ignition to begin. And in true ANZAC tradition, the 3.5-metre-long Australian Dart AE test aircraft will be launched aboard a New Zealand Rocket Lab Electron rocket. The flight will lift off from Rocket Lab's Launch Complex 2 at the Wallops Island Spaceport on the Virginian mid-Atlantic coast. Hypersonics have codenamed their mission Cassowary Vex, although Rocket Lab are calling the Electron launch That's Not a Knife. During the test flight, Hypersonics Dart AE aircraft will attempt to validate not only its advanced scramjet propulsion system, but also its ability to function under extreme temperatures, the operations of its onboard sensors, and the performance of its avionics, including its guidance and control systems under real hypersonic flight conditions. And unlike other jet engines, including scramjets fueled by kerosene, the hydrogen-powered Spartan engine produces no carbon dioxide emissions, just pure water vapour. The underlying scramjet technology for the test was developed by a team of scientists and engineers at the University of Queensland and was initially tested using sounding rockets at the Woomera Rocket Range in outback South Australia. This is Space Time. And time now to take a brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week on the Science Report. Scientists have discovered a new species of Spinosaurus dinosaur in the Central Sahara Desert of Niger. Famed paleontologist Paul Sereno from the University of Chicago led the team which uncovered the spectacular new fossil, which they've named Spinosaurus mirabilis, meaning astonishing Spinosaurus or spine lizard. The discovery, reported in the journal Science, describes a 95-million-year-old theropod with a unique horn-like crest on its head. Previously, Spinosaurid bones and teeth had only been found in coastal deposits not far from the shoreline, leading some scientists to hypothesize that these fish-eating carnivores may have been aquatic, pursuing prey underwater. However, the new fossil area in Niger documents animals that were living well inland, up to 1,000 kilometres from the nearest marine shoreline. Their proximity to intact partial skeletons of long-necked sauropod dinosaurs, all buried in river sediments, suggests that they lived in a forested inland habitat dissected by rivers. Generally speaking, Spinosaurids are thought to have reached lengths of up to 14 metres and weights of more than 8 tonnes, making them very similar in size to Tyrannosaurus rex, but with a more crocodilian-like skull. Well, it sounds like a plot from a sci-fi horror movie, but scientists have uncovered a strain of bacteria, buried for over 5,000 years, which is resistant to at least 10 modern antibiotics. A report in the journal Frontiers in Microbiology says researchers discovered the Psychobacter SC65A3 bacterial strain in an ice cave in Romania. The bacterium has over 100 genes known to be resistant-related. Psychobacter is already known to infect animals, including humans, though rarely, as the species prefers cold environments. A new study warns that sea ice coverage on the Antarctic Peninsula could fall by as much as 20% under high carbon emission scenarios. The findings, reported in the journal Frontiers in Environmental Science, show a scenario that could devastate krill species with flow-on effects affecting whales and penguins. The authors modelled what could happen to the Antarctic Peninsula under the best and worst case scenarios, with either limit warming to 1.8 degrees Celsius or allowing it to rise up to 4.4 degrees Celsius. They found that a lower emission scenario winter sea ice would only be slightly smaller than today, and sea level contributions from the peninsula would be limited to just a few millimetres. But under a high emission scenario, the authors worry about the permanent changes that could happen. They say these changes would be irreversible on human timescales, as it would be very hard to regrow glaciers and bring back the wildlife that makes Antarctica so special. A new study is warning of the likelihood of kidney cell damage caused by high exposure to microplastics. The findings, reported in the journal Cell Biology and Toxicology by scientists at Flinders University, follows growing concerns about the effects that tiny microscopically sized plastic particles are having on human health. Researchers examine the effects of the accumulation of nanoplastics on human kidneys, the body's major blood filtering system. The study calls for more investigations into the long-term risks, warning that high nanoplastic particle burden could seriously compromise kidney cell health and function. To quote the immortal Dr. Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, there is absolutely no scientific evidence to support clairvoyance of any kind, which means that fortune-telling is a fraud, the profession is a swindle, and its livelihood is dependent on the gullibility of stupid people. Which brings us to Kim Kardashian, who's cranky that her family psychic wrongly assured her that she'd pass her bar exam. The reality star and aspiring lawyer has expressed frustration towards the psychics that she and her family have relied on for many years, calling them pathological liars for predicting that she would succeed. The Skeptic's Tim Mindham says, what's the world coming to if you can't rely on your family psychic?
Yeah, she didn't, and she blames the psychic. All these comments for her, she says they're full of waste material, as she describes them, or words to that effect. She was going for a law exam she's been studying since 2019, and she previously passed what's called the baby bar exam on her fourth attempt in 21, so she's trying to get to be a full-blown lawyer. She went for the test and she didn't pass. Now, some psychics had told her family psychics, as is described, so that's a worry, had told her that she will pass and she'll become a lawyer. And she didn't pass. So naturally her reaction is not that, oops, I stuffed up, I need to study more, but that her psychics are full of waste material and that they're to blame in a way. So she should take some credit for her failure, I think.
Mind you, when you think about it, lawyers are just people who weren't bright enough to go to med school or undertake a doctorate in physics.
But they get more money.
That's the Skeptic's Tim Mindham, and this is Space Time. That's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favourite podcast download provider, and from spacetimewithstuartgary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.